All right. It looks like. Sorry, it took a moment for this thing to start. It never used to take so long to start. I'm gonna try to see if I can upgrade the video. There's an update available or an update. Um. Alrighty. So we're gonna start doing some eggs as usual, trying to get our mutation. But for now, we're gonna play some videos. Let me start the first video. It's a new guy that it's called Cheap Off-Grid Living, and it says Secure Your Freedom. I think he's talking about buying a piece of land, but man, I mean, I had like 21 cents to my name. But let's see what he says.
Hello, friends. I had a long drive yesterday, and I was thinking about our future, our security.
Okay.
I got probably 3 small plastic grocery bags worth of groceries, and it was $100. And then I get out in the parking lot and I look at my phone, and I got an insurance payment notification that they're going to be processing my insurance soon, and the payment went up $4.50. Now, it started at $65 a month. Forget, I don't know, 4 years ago when I was able to get insurance for like $35 a month just for a regular vehicle, you know, liability, older vehicle, right? It's up to $84.50. I barely got anything. It wasn't like I got expensive food or anything, and it came up to $100. And now there's all this talk on the news. Now I know whenever I say stuff like this, somebody's gonna say, well, they're playing 4D chess or something like that. But there's all this talk about these, tariffs and stuff, and trade wars and whatever. And I am just wondering about, I mean, can people in our economy right now, can they even handle to be stretched any further? The majority of Americans now don't even have $400 in their checking account if something bad happened. That's how bad it's gotten. And it just keeps getting more and more and more expensive to live. It never seems to go down, no matter who's running things. I'm not trying to get political in this video at all, so because everybody has their stance and nobody bends on anything. It's a hive mind on the left and right, and nobody seems to notice that I don't even like to say it. If y'all think that we're ever going to see any files, I'll just code it like that, on anything whatsoever, you're delusional. And everything just keeps getting more and more expensive. I hear that Buffett went and he's got like the most cash of any person in the world right now.
No, baby. No,
and why would he do that, right? Is he about to go and buy up a whole bunch of real estate? I don't know. Are things just gonna... I think people, they've already been put upside down and shook for every dime they've got. And it's just getting... So the point of all this is just... I keep my hopes up that the cost of living will go down, but I think that the best thing that people can do at this point, regardless of what you think is coming, it could get rough for a while with these tariff... Oh my gosh. It could get rough for a while with these trade wars, tariff wars and stuff. That just like came out of nowhere. Regardless if it's the right or wrong thing to do, I don't want to argue about any of that. I've got my own opinions, just like I'm sure a lot of you do. But it could get really rough for a while. That's why I think securing your freedom, folks, if I were you, I would do everything I possibly can to get out of debt, because that's what holds you down right there. If you've got land payments, do everything that you can do to pay your land off. Golly, that's huge. Huh. Wow. I'm gonna go stand in this tree. If you've got...
The guy's in a snowy environment right now.
Golly! The things I do to make a video. I would try to secure your future, your freedom, above everything. That's got to be the most important thing. I don't care what your political stance is on anything, whether you have full trust in the system or not, in the people running the system or not. I've always had pretty good intuition about stuff like this. Not saying I've always been right. I've been wrong a lot in my life. But I think people should worry about securing their freedom, getting out of debt. These trade... Golly, it's like a whole bunch of... This is just nuts. Look at that. I mean, folks, to be honest with you, I'm still waking up every day. I'm still seeing lines in the sky. I'm still seeing red 40 in all the foods. And it's like the same old game all the time. Promises, you know, some promises are kept and stuff, and I'm happy about that. And we'll see where it goes. I want to be an optimistic person. I want to think of the glass half full, right? But we've got a Skynet being built above our heads right now. We got a lot of confrontations coming with other countries, with trades, and I wouldn't be taking out no loans on nothing, folks. Secure your freedom. Get some land. And, you know, every time I say that I own my land, people mention in there, you know, they say, you never own your land. And that may be true, you know, because there's taxes. But well, if you get, golly, if you get land,
make sure you get shelter.
Your taxes are only like $3-4 a year.
Make sure you get shelter with it.
That's barely anything, folks. That's pretty much owning your land, right?
Not really. There's no allodial land.
Sure, you stop paying your land taxes, they'll come and get you. But folks, I don't even have, to be honest with you, I don't even have a problem with land taxes, because we're living under a system where we're being protected by the military and all that. I'm not saying that there's not a lot of problems, but I'm just trying to be positive. What it was 70 degrees like 3 days ago. So yeah, it is. It's probably about 12:30 right now. I know it looks like the evening, but it's just the afternoon. And because it's that cloudy, I haven't been getting much for solar power. And I'm walking around my property here constantly, and I'm just so grateful that I pretty much took every dime I had for a long time, or for months. Well, even more than months, because I started saving up for it before I even got the property. And then while I had the property, I was giving them every dime I could to get it paid off, even though it would have been more functional for me to build up my channel with a whole bunch of projects and stuff like that. But projects take money. I think we're always going to be reliant on other people, but at this time right now, self-sufficiency is gotta be the way. It's the more self-sufficient you can become, the better. You're never gonna get 100% self-sufficient unless you got a ton of money to throw out there, or you've been doing it for years. I don't even believe those people can, because they're still gonna need oil for their tractors. They're still gonna need well, they won't need gas. They could get a tractor and a truck. You could get a tractor and a truck that run off of biodiesel and make your own biodiesel. But there's products we're always gonna have to rely on, folks, unless you got your own shop where you can make your own parts for those vehicles and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Somebody's gonna have to mine the rubber for your new tires and stuff. All I'm saying, folks, is going more towards the self-sufficiency. It's got to be the only way. That's what I see. I've seen it for years. I just wasn't in the position to go towards it yet, and a lot of folks are in that position. They're stuck. They're just stuck in this loophole, this stinking loophole of paying rent, and their job pays just enough for them to make the rent payment, buy some food for the month, make their phone bill, and they just don't have much left over to start saving and stuff. And when they do save, I mean, I've been in this loophole before. You do save up to try to get ahead, and then something happens. Your vehicle breaks down or something like that. It's just a horrible loop, and I completely understand it. But steps can be taken to get away from that. It's luxuries. It's luxuries that people aren't willing to let go of for a while. That's why they can't get ahead. If you bought yourself like a van or something, and you went to work every day and then just slept in your van somewhere, that takes out the rent right there, or you got yourself, there's just taking out the luxuries for a while. That's what I've done for some years now, and I've learned. I had no idea how to save. I was so bad at saving, and I had a friend for a while that constantly talked to me about saving, and he was right. And then I was up in Jackson Hole, traveling around with my dog, with my truck camper, and I tried to go up the Grand Teton Pass, and my transmission went out. And I remember driving back down to the town. You couldn't sleep anywhere in town because they had ordinances. So anywhere I would have slept I would have had the cops knocking on my door telling me I can't sleep there overnight. And I had no savings. It was like one of the worst times of my life. And I vowed to myself from that moment on that I wasn't going to travel cross country with $200 in my pocket anymore, you know. Because if something goes bad, you're just, that was depressing. I was just looking at my dog's eyes and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I've done a lot of growing over the, you know, I still got a lot of growing to do, but this is what I see, folks, is I see we got to secure our freedom. Get some land, get rid of your vehicle that you got to make payments on. Go get something cheaper, you know. Put your vehicle up there that, you know, you got a vehicle that's 40 grand and you're still making payments on it. Put it up for sale and get something cheaper and then just start saving. Take charge of your own life. You don't have to have, I don't know. Folks, life is a balance. And we already have it pretty good here, especially in America right now. The cost of living's still going up and up and up and up and up, but we still have it better than a lot of other countries. So there's a lot to be grateful for. But I think it's time, folks. Time to start securing your freedom. All right, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go inside and warm up a little bit. Go put some more diesel in my diesel heater tank so I can get the heat going. And yeah, then I'm going to edit this. And folks, thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up. And because it really matters. I'm really trying to build this channel up. I'm trying. And just reach your finger up there and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video wherever you think that somebody may find value in it. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. And I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Woo!
Wow. Well, the thing is, you can be independent as you want. Okay? There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being able to create your own food, you know, make your own decisions, and make your own decisions and be as far from dependency upon the system as possible. But he's right. Even farmers, they're going to need gasoline, diesel, or whatever it is for their tractors. You know, there's no real independence. If you die and you don't leave your land to somebody, it goes back to the state and they will sell it and make a profit off you. There's no allodial land unless you're of a certain nationality, from what I heard. But independence could mean, you know, you having the skills to survive, like survivalist skills. Could mean something like you making your own money from your own profitable businesses, if you know how to do that. You know, things like that. And that's cool, and all. Unfortunately, you know, some of us don't have a green thumb. Some of us are old, type 2 diabetics, dependent upon the system for medication, incredibly sick. Like I said, and I've said it before, I go downstairs to throw away the trash. I live on the second floor. By the time I come back here, I have to sit in my chair because I'm winded. I'm completely out of breath at that point. So that is not, I'm not healthy anymore. whether that's because of diabetic neuropathy in the left lung, which they don't really acknowledge happened. They refuse to acknowledge it. They don't have the technology to look at it. In other words, they took X-ray and they did EKG and they said there's no problem, that I'm fine. And I'm over here like struggling to breathe and shit. So after a while, you just realize that these people are going to bill you separately through 5 or 6 different doctors. It's not really one doctor. It's like 5 or 6 different. I need somebody for my eyes, somebody for my lungs eventually, probably. Somebody for the diabetes, right? I need somebody for every little thing. Somebody for the skin irritation, the dry skin, which drives me crazy. I need somebody for everything different. And each time I go to a doctor, it's $60, which I don't have to spend. I go to the regular doctor to get the diabetes meds because I need them. But the rest of it, I just try to improvise ways around it. Nothing else I can do. I just don't have the money. But that's how they screw you. They just screw you and screw you and screw you. And that's it. In the old days, maybe you had one doctor, and that doctor would refer you to somebody else, but only as needed. Everybody's a specialist trying to make contract work. Nobody really cares about, the individual. But anyway, yeah, the system sucks. It doesn't matter what state it's in. The way it's designed is designed to maximize saturation and get the maximum money out of you. They're designed to get the maximum amount of work out of you on your jobs and a maximum amount of money whenever they charge you. Sad as that is. Being independent, he thinks, I have like a bunch of cats. I can't just leave these cats. So my goal is to make money, extra money, and to compensate for the loss. That way I can get ahead. So my goal, besides praying for my diabetic neuropathy, which is still managed, it's still managed at this point, even though it bugs me sometimes. But the Lord said He said to embrace the pain and move forward. And that's what I decided to do. I took His advice, and it's still, so far it's working. And I'm just content with it, because we all have suffering, we all have pain, and I'm no different. And it's too bad. I thought I was going to live this fantastic life with a bachelor's degree. And it turns out they sent all the good jobs that I could have done in my field to other countries. And they had been doing this since I graduated. They sold out this country since I was a kid, and I didn't even know it till today, till I was old, and I had tried so hard to, get my career going. I had tried so hard, thinking it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. But you know what? Sometimes it's not going to be okay. Sometimes you're having problems. And that's the truth. Sometimes you just have a bunch of problems. But that's okay. If you let the pain define who you are and manipulate you emotionally, then you're just being weak. And you don't want to be weak. You want to be strong. So I overcome the pain. I embrace it. And I move forward. I move forward with my life. Crying about it isn't going to help you any. kind of a pointless venture. So yeah, I mean, I want to live in a van. I want to live in a minivan or something. But the truth is, I can't afford it. A minivan. I was gonna buy a used van from what's that place? Rent-A-Car. That Rent-A-Car place. Forgot what it's called. And anyway, I was gonna buy a used van, passenger van, and then convert it. But then I would have had to have abandoned my cats. And these cats are dependent upon me for food and housing when it's cold. And I try to take care of them. Because when God provided this apartment complex, you know, it's really good for both of us because, you know, it takes care of my babies. You know, it puts a roof over my baby's head. And I can't abandon my children just because, you know, I screwed up in life, you know. I let people push me around, manipulate me, talk me out of blessings. I let these people control my life. You know, I let them get in my head and tell me how much money I was worth. Tell them what what the value of my labor is. Let them dictate the value of my labor. And I shouldn't have done that. You know, but the only reason I have a job is because I let them do what they want. If I contested them, if I gave them any resistance, they're not going to put up with it. They're just going to dump me. That's the truth about work and companies, corporations. I'm a slave. I can't really own land because if I die, it goes back to the state. It doesn't stay in my bloodline. It doesn't stay in my family. If I leave it to somebody, they have to pay the taxes on it. It's always taxes. It's always something. So that's the way it is, unfortunately. Anyway, let's see if there's another video here. It's going to take a little while to do all these eggs. Let's see. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Next video, Legion of Men. Nobody wants to have kids anymore, but why?
I have an episode here from How Money Works. Nobody wants to have kids anymore.
The end of the Second World War resulted in a massive spike in fertility across the world that gave rise to the largest generation in history, the aptly named baby boomers.
All right.
Soldiers returned home young, dumb, and full of patriotic spirit. And especially here in America, this family-centered growth coincided with what many believed to be the golden age of capitalism. Homes were cheap, the free market was providing newfangled products to consume, jobs could provide a stable and comfortable living, and the only thing left to do was get busy starting a family. Now, this sounds like such a rose-tinted version of history that borders on being inaccurate, but that doesn't actually matter. Today, we are dealing with expensive homes, overconsumption of disposable consumer junk, and jobs that are extremely insecure. So naturally, the most pressing question for governments around the world is, how to make people make babies again?
Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion a year.
Their childcare expenses from their income taxes. That's a first.
What is the biggest thing that needs to change here in South Korea to make this more appealing for women?
Starting next year, South Korea will pay a childcare allowance of around $530 to parents with newborns.
The biggest issue in 20 years will be population collapse. Not explosion, collapse.
An uncontrolled population decline is a very concerning issue that will have serious impacts on all of us who are planning to live for more than the next 20 years. But it's important to distinguish between people who are concerned about what a population decline represents and people who are concerned about not having a ready stream of available labor produced for them. They may sound...
You know what's crazy is that I was reading the comments about what I said in a previous video, how it's underpinned entirely by economics. And people are like, it's not the economy, because poor countries are having kids left and right. It has nothing to do with money. Are you fucking mentally challenged? It has everything to do with money. In poor countries, people have kids because that's their literal investment. You have kids, they can work on the farm, they can get a job young in some fucking child factory somewhere, they can help around the house. You have free labor. That is why you have kids in a poor country. They are your investment. They will take care of you when you're older. There are no government hand-me-downs. There's no old folks home. You need kids to secure your own survival. So you're going to have a bunch, because a couple might die, a couple might turn out bad and not do shit, and one or two may become successful. It's a numbers game. In a post-industrialized, service-based modern economy, kids are not an investment. They're an expense. You don't need kids to ensure your survival. Your job in an old folks home can do that for you. So having kids is now an option, no longer needed for survival. So why do you have kids? Or I should say the question is, how do you entice young people to have children? Secure them financially with good paying jobs in a strong economy. Make housing cheap so that they can afford a stable nest to build out of. Make the laws fair so men don't get wrecked one way in court. And give them tax breaks and incentives for each kid that they have. Help them start the way we used to when communities were smaller and the town would come around to your wedding and donate you, whether money or things for, like, you know, furniture for your house to get you started, dowry, shit like that. If we could replicate that, then we could have a robust economy with population explosion, with GDP exploding along with it, all that stuff. But you want people in an economy that's service-based, highly modernized, where kids are only an added expense, a major one, and do not benefit them in any way other than malegacy. Okay? And if you're one of the few people like me and some others that malegacy, it matters to you, then you'll do anything at all costs to have children. But for everybody else who's especially struggling, who can hardly feed themselves, the last thing they're thinking about is like a fucking kid, paying for a woman, no less, as a man, providing and supporting a woman, and then a kid on top of that. Are you fucking insane? Most people are hardly making it on one income alone. My kids aren't going to be earning me any money, multiplying the power of earnings for the family in any way until they're done with college. And that's maybe, if they earn enough, maybe to have extra money to give with you. So you're taking a 18, it's longer than that, it's like a 24-year investment into a one child. Hopefully they came out good in this economy, in this society, in this culture, and they could be successful and give back to you. That's when your investment actually makes sense in the modern economy we're in. Imagine if you were guaranteed your kids were going to be successful with high-paying jobs and they were able to take care of you. People would be having kids left and right. But that's not a reality. And it's all underpinned by economics. People in the poor countries have kids out of fucking survival, bro. Get your ass over there and plow the fucking field and collect the rice from the paddies and all that other shit. In a modernized society, none of that's fucking necessary. And that is why people are opting for dogs and cats. It's like the next cheapest level down, but not going fully all in with a fucking child that will cost you 18 to 24 years.
Similar, but there are two very distinct solutions depending on how you look at the problem, or if you even consider it a problem at all. To see why, we need to clear up some history. The exact cause of the 1950s baby boom was not as simple as people just returning home from war and getting to it. The easiest way to see this is that there was no baby boom after the First World War. In fact, after 1918 and a brief dip during the Spanish flu, birth rates dropped to levels very similar to today, which kind of goes against the narrative. If you paid any attention to general media coverage of population collapse, you have probably been told that this is an entirely modern phenomenon caused by, well, whatever problem with the modern world you want to pick. But that's not entirely accurate. In fact, the fertility rate back here was actually worse than it looks. To understand why, you need to understand two numbers. The fertility rate, normally expressed in the number of births per woman, and also the replacement rate. The replacement rate is how many children the average woman needs to have to maintain the population. Today in America and most other high-income countries, that number is about 2.1 children per woman. The 2 is because the population is naturally split 50-50 between men and women. So to account for that, the average woman needs to have 2 children. And the 0.1 is because tragically, some children don't make it to adulthood where they could potentially have children of their own. Now, everybody from politicians across the political spectrum to your weird uncle at Thanksgiving has been paying strangely close attention to national and global fertility rates. But what gets less attention is that the replacement rate is variable too, and it has also been declining. Back in the 1920s, people needed to have more than 3 children on average just to maintain the population, since infant mortality rate was much higher than it is today. That means that the population back here was actually declining faster than it is today. All in the age before modern contraceptives, widespread women in the workforce, the breakdown of family values, or whatever else is blamed for our current population trends. Another explanation for the baby boom was that the post-World War II economy was just so good that starting a family was easy. But the Roaring '20s were also a highly prosperous post-war economy, and yet people were having a lot fewer babies. The birth rate actually only started recovering after 1929, when the Great Depression plunged a staggering amount of American families back into relative poverty. In fact, by actually looking at the data, you can see that the baby boom really started in the 1930s when the American economy was arguably in its worst state in the last century. There was a pause during the war, but the post-war baby boom that we are all familiar with was really just the continuation of a trend that had already started. So, if it wasn't contraceptives, women in the workforce, economic growth, the move into cities, or modern family values, what actually caused the birth rate slump back then? Well, it's the same thing that caused the baby boom. And the reason I'm giving you this history lesson is because it could also solve a lot of our population problems today, but you might not like the answer. One of the most consistent baby blockers is income inequality. The economist Thomas Piketty, as part of writing his book Capital in the 21st Century, collected and compiled income inequality data over the last century. Just quickly, this is probably one of the best books on economics ever written, and it reads easily even to non-economists. So, like always, I will leave a link to it in the description below. Using my link helps the channel a little bit, and a good book will... But anyways, if you invert the data that...
So he's got income inequality in the United States 1910 to 2010, and income inequality, because he inverted the graph.
Anyways, if you invert quickly...
So you had the highest income inequality in 1929, right there preceding the crash, and then right now we're at historic levels, because this is 2010, but income inequality post-pandemic, we don't have 2020, but that graph probably shot up dramatically. So we have record high income inequality, and every time we've had income inequality, we had those horrific birth rates. Because people are fucking starving. Because wealth is concentrated in the hands of the few and the wealthy. Because you can't afford a home. You can't afford to fucking eat. Jobs don't pay anything if there's even any jobs at all available in your area because of all the fucking ghost jobs. You couple in stupid policies like DEI and all this other woke shit, and you might even be elbowed out of any position that may be available in your area simply for what's in between your legs or the color of your skin or who the fuck you identify as in today's world. That's the main cause of this. This is the graph right here. Here you go, boys. Arguably, from 1945-ish to 1980-ish, right? This is when America's middle class was absolutely huge, booming, and this coincides with high birth rates. You see how it's fucking inversely related, okay? Low income inequality means high birth rate. Told you, it's fucking economic.
Income inequality data over it lines up almost perfectly with the fertility rate. If people feel like they aren't falling behind, if they have social mobility, and they can provide what is considered a good life, they will have more children. The New Deal, that was the foundation of the Great Depression recovery efforts and the GI Bill following World War II, massively reduced income inequality. And with it, the babies flowed.
Yep.
But this is a big problem because, yes, people in power want to avoid a population crunch, but not like that. So it's time to learn how money works to find out how to make people make babies without, giving them too much. This week's video is sponsored by Beam. Beam is all about helping you sleep better, feel better, and perform at your best. /how many works to check it out. Pretty much stagnant. Based on archaeological records, the average population growth rate for the 10,000 years between the dawn of human civilization and the Industrial Revolution was just 0.04%. Generation to generation, it was barely enough to register. And even then, there were significant setbacks like the Black Plague, which wiped out between a quarter and half of all people in Europe. People had a lot more children on average, but fewer of them survived, so the population didn't really budge. And then came the Industrial Revolution, which kicked off a bit of a feedback loop. Mechanized industry and agriculture could feed and provide more people, and more people meant more work could be done, and more innovations could be made to feed and provide for more people. Refinements in medicine and nutrition meant that people also lived a lot longer, which gave them more opportunities to apply their expertise to making an overall wealthier world. By best estimates, something like 7% of all of the humans to have ever lived are currently alive right now, and that's been great for business. Having more people naturally boosted industry, because there were more potential consumers to cater to, and population...
Look, boys, here's the other dark part of what happened. As economies boomed and multinational, transnational corporations sprouted up with power equating small countries, they then drove a wedge in politics through money, through lobbying, through outright corruption, where they now pay for, we live in this world right now, Citizens United is the perfect example, where corporate money completely dominates our political cycle. The whims and needs and wants of a corporation is more important than the average citizen. They pay for the campaign trails. They pay for the candidates themselves. I mean, fuck. Our current president, his vice president, is a Peter Thiel ex-employee, for which, before Vance was announced, Trump met with Peter Thiel, a billionaire, and Vance, and he was convinced in some way or another, to the tune of, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars, I forget what the report was, to pick Vance. Okay, I'm just saying, billionaires or the billionaire class in the corporate class run politics. What they want is what they get. What you want doesn't matter. These people have so much money that when the economy crashes, they will buy up all the assets. You have no idea. You don't even have a shot. You thought 08, 09 was bad? Wait until the next one comes around. It's always been a class struggle, guys. But they try to divide us along all these ideological lines, team red, team blue, black or white, Christian or liberal, you name it, whatever it is. All to distract you from the fact that the entire system has been taken over by multinational corporations and special interests. You know what special interest means? Not in your interest as a citizen. When they say special interest groups met with the president or his cabinet, people with interest different than yours. That's why they're special. Special as in they gave us money and then we gave them favors back through legislation. Special as in it's good for them, but it will fuck you over, the citizen, in some way, shape, or form. But it's okay, they gave us money. They didn't donate and they didn't pay us off. They lobbied. Yeah. You're fucking corrupt, bro. Unreal.
Growth provided a ready supply of labor to work in the new factories. Early industrial centers like London became extremely rich, but even back then, some familiar trends emerged. Cities during the Industrial Revolution were horrible places to live. They figured out building factories much faster than building sanitation. So infectious diseases, malnutrition, and foodborne pathogens were more prevalent in these population-dense centers. So many people died in London that up until the 20th century, it was almost entirely reliant on people moving from the countryside to get work to maintain its population. Now, most cities in high-income countries, with the notable exception of San Francisco, eventually figured out that leaving human waste in the street was not a good idea. So even though cities aren't actively killing their inhabitants anymore, they are still population black holes that have very low birth rates and rely on people moving to them to maintain themselves. That's simply because cities are expensive. Unless you are extremely wealthy, you probably can't afford a family-sized home close to a major city. And depending on your career, you might not be able to move away from those cities without losing your job. Today, a trend has emerged where having lots of children is either an indication of being extremely wealthy or being extremely poor, with very little room in the middle for large middle-class families.
I told you guys, marriage and stable families, all that's going to become a luxury that only rich people engage in. You're seeing, look, here's the beginning. In the Japan times, the wealthy are starting to have more babies than the poor again. Exactly. You're going to be a fucking pleb, a cog in the machine, alone, consuming. They're going to come out with AI girlfriends. You're going to pay for lines of code. You're going to pay for a fucking subscription fee. And the spicier you want her to get, the more you're going to have to pay, and you'll be dooming and cooming in your room while they make fucking babies, touch grass, and live a life you could only dream of. That's the dystopia they want. They're going to fuck you out of existence. Life is going to become so dystopian for the average person that they'll just die out instead of breed. It's like the rat utopia experiment where the animal gets so stressed out that they no longer breed and population collapse happens. This is just a kind way to get rid of the pores in the world. Kind in their eyes, instead of, outright exterminating the undesirables.
With very little room in the middle for large middle-class families. Because that's just become unaffordable in most cities around the world. Now, over the past 300 years, we have also run out of people to pull from the high birth rate countryside. So the trend has gone global, and today, most advanced economies pull in people from high birth rate countries. The rise in immigration to fill labor shortages has masked the issue, but it has caused other problems like further contributing to housing affordability and putting downward pressure on wages and upward pressure on income inequality. There is also the not-so-subtle reality that a lot of the people that want a stable supply of young workers would, let's just say, strongly prefer if those workers were homegrown. Now, in all of this, there is one other simple solution. Let people work jobs outside of the city. The COVID pandemic was the most recent global event to shake up birth rates. Initially, it caused a sharp dip as people lost their jobs and saw hospitals barely having the capacity to manage the load. But as more dual-income households moved to working from home, births increased and not only made up for the initial drop, but exceeded expected trends. Unsurprisingly, it's easier to deal with a pregnancy and have children when parents don't need to go into an office. It allows people to live in cheaper and more family-friendly communities further away from commercial centers. Now, this reality is rustling some jimmies because companies want people to move back into the office for a variety of reasons. But the good news is that we actually have...
As at Minnesota, and one of the videos before moving to a nice place with fucking 50 acres and disappearing, I was saying Montana. I'll deal with the cold winters. That place is safe, beautiful, wide open space. Who knows? We'll see. Northern Arizona is the same, but yeah. If you're blessed enough to get away from the city or you're not anchored by a job in the city, you should absolutely get away. It makes no sense. The return on investment, the cost of living in a city, it doesn't matter. Even if you have an increased wage that's keeping up with inflation, it's not keeping up with all the other things that are increasing. Like inflation is what they give you, like 4%, but your rent just went up $300. Your groceries are now another $100. Gas is also increasing. What else has increased way above the 4% threshold that they're giving out? It's fucking nuts, man. It's unsustainable is what it is. Yeah. The elites, how to make people make more babies. The answer, build more houses, raise income so that one parent can stay home, or childcare can be affordable. Elites, no, not like that. Yeah. I think with the advent of AI and robotics, they don't need us anymore, boys. So how do you get people to basically kill themselves off slowly throughout a few generations? There's one way to eliminate people. Make it so that they can't afford to have kids. They'll do it all themselves. Yep. Yeah, somebody said it, this quote. People have more kids when they live in a safe society where they have resources. Is obvious to anyone who isn't an idiotic billionaire. They're not idiotic. Stop saying they're stupid. Stop saying these people are dumb and they're out of touch. That's a great way to escape the real criticism that they deserve and to really examine what the fuck's going on in society. Oh, they're stupid. They have no idea what they're doing. They're so detached from reality. These people are hyper-focused on the details. They know exactly what the fucking outcome is of every single legislation they pass. They just don't give a fuck because it doesn't affect them. They know what they're doing. This isn't an accident. You think all this social engineering that you've lived through in the last 30 or so years was a fucking accident? We had no idea that this was going to be the outcome. Yeah, fucking right, bro. That's why the pores are dying off in record numbers. Nobody's making babies anymore. They're getting rid of the whole part of society that's deplorable. That's just taking up air. But we can't outright exterminate everyone. But we can't stress them out, deprive them of resources and housing to an extent where they don't want to have kids themselves. Within a few generations, our progeny will reign supreme. And there will be a beautiful world, a new utopia of only rich people. Yeah. Anyways, sounding like a fucking conspiracy nut. Don't know what I'm talking about. Clearly, I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. Totally. Go back to dooming and cooming, boys. Forget what I said. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Well, I didn't make babies because I was abused by my mother. I had a lot of fear in my heart. I didn't want to wind up like my father, who was essentially a bum, who left me when I was 2 years old. I went out and forced myself to earn a bachelor's degree. And in the end, I wound up with nothing. You know, I have my cats. That's about it. That's it. You know, I hate to admit it, but I mean, the guy's right about a couple of things. Anyway. Let's see if I can find another video real quick. It's kind of depressing when you think about it, because you don't really want to believe that that's the situation, but it is.
It is too windy out.
Okay, no, that's a video you have to see.
Trump.
All right, so this is the Millionaire Morning Show with I think it's Anton Daniels. Anton Daniels. They charge us 200% more on dairy. Trump threatens Canada with new 250% tariffs. Talks more jobs.
Trump, in addition to the inward pressure that they're facing from their new prime minister, as well as tariffs, additional tariffs,
I gotta go to the restaurant. I'll be
China,
right back, though.
Canada is facing new tariffs, and Trump spoke about this extensively. Make sure you guys hit a like for the algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's get into it.
In Canada, you know, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that.
Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that Canada was already charging us over 200% for dairy products? Why are we just now becoming aware of the fact that all of these other countries been taxing us for a long time and getting away with it? But then they want to act like we the bad guy when we decide that we want to go ahead and address it accordingly. Now everybody want to act like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Did y'all know that Canada was charging us over 200% for dairy products, according to what Trump is saying right now?
Well taken care of, but under Biden,
What up,
they just
Cat
kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You
Tariffs
don't hear
on
that.
everybody.
They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada, but our numbers are a tiny fraction of that. Almost.
Is that fair? Is that fair? Is it fair that they make it impossible for us to sell products over there, but then they say that this is equal, we have an equal footing, this is our best friend? Canada said that they was our best friend. Then why are you preventing me from being able to get my money?
It's non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold, but we're freeing it up on an emergency basis, because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products.
All right, I'm back.
250%. Nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers. So that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it, and that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early as today, or we'll wait till Monday or Tuesday. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to charge the same thing. It's not fair. Never has been fair.
Matt, where exactly are we with tariffs? What's the status of these tariffs today?
Yeah, it's incredibly confusing. It feels like every hour almost there's a new tariff that is threatened or dialed back or delayed. I haven't looked at my phone in 90 seconds, so I might have missed another tariff threat on Truth Social. But look, 20% tariffs on China, that did kick in on Tuesday. There's also 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico, excluding autos and products that are compliant with the USMCA trade agreement. 10% tariff on Canadian energy and potash, which is a compound used to make fertilizer that American farmers need. But look, there's more tariffs that are on the way. Maybe. I mean, the president has threatened to impose new tariffs on steel and aluminum imports next week.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Although we've granted exemptions to the auto industry, and the auto industry, they should have been making adjustments, and they should have known that Trump was going to win the president of the United States of America. That's what they get. That's what they get. And the UAW, y'all have done y'all part in supporting leadership in the UAW that ultimately drove manufacturing into Mexico in the first place. You did. You did. And I warned you during your last strike that y'all did against American automakers. I've warned you in previous strikes. You guys have driven your trash leadership, which we have heard nothing from Sean Fain. Has anybody heard from Sean Fain? Ever since Biden got ousted, we ain't hear a word from Sean Fain. Not one word have we heard from Sean. Remember, he was all on the stump and he was looking for a cabinet position within the Biden administration. Kamala Harris didn't really promise him anything, but he couldn't go back on his promise that he made to Biden, so he still had to, support the Kamala Harris campaign. We ain't heard nothing from President Sean Fain. Y'all getting rid of Sean Fain? And then manufacturing was driven to Mexico and Canada, and what that did was it basically eliminated American jobs while continuing to say, hey, made in the Americas, made in North America, made in, the region where we have the USMCA agreement, which used to be the NAFTA agreement. So then they were basically building parts and manufacturing everything inside of Mexico, and they were using parts that was shipped over from China. And Trump said, no more. You're not going to get through this loophole. You're not going to finesse us. You're not going to take advantage of the American taxpayers. We're not going to subsidize you, especially after we had to bail you guys out during the last meltdown of the United States of America in 2008, which was largely attributed to Bush and the Clinton organization, in my opinion, that Obama came in and inherited. So I'm not going to lay that at his feet. But Trump said, listen, we're not going to do that anymore. And so United States manufacturers, auto manufacturers, not only from the United States of America, but also foreign automakers, have to start making their cars inside of the United States of America, or they're going to get tariffed. Or they're going to get tariffed. That's just it. And the aluminum industry and the steel industry, thank Trump. He's saving y'all from yourselves. So now, instead of having to compete and manufacturing steel and aluminum at a loss, we preserve jobs, and hopefully we can continue to get investment inside of the United States of America, where you guys can be profitable and then reinvest into making better facilities for your workers to be able to work in. Thank you, Trump. To all of my friends down there at the steel industry, down there in Dearborn, Michigan, thanks, Trump. He's actually working on your behalf and making it more difficult for manufacturers to buy steel and aluminum that they then use to make the parts for your car. He's incentivizing them to buy here in America instead of buying overseas. So when you see a lot of these Democrats and they say stuff like, they're going to make it more expensive, what they're effectively doing is saying, eliminate American jobs so that you can buy cheaper cars. Listen to what I'm saying. When you see Jasmine Crockett and AOC and Bernie Sanders and all of these people who have never actually had a real job, I'm not talking about being a waitress, I'm talking about a real job, working in a manufacturing facility, being, of service to somebody else outside of American taxpayer dollars. What they're telling you to do is to get rid of American jobs so that we can buy cheaper products from overseas, shut down our plants inside of the United States of America, get more government federal jobs, which you use your taxpayers to subsidize, which then increase the federal deficit, all so you can hopefully buy a Chinese vehicle.
Yeah. Welcome to America.
It's the same thing that Clinton did in the 90s. He sold off all of the manufacturing. He allowed for them to all go overseas. It laid off all of the manufacturers and got rid of industries inside of the United States of America. It temporarily boosted up the amount of money that we were generating because we became a financing state, financing capital, financing country. And so that's when the banks became too big to fail and we couldn't self-correct, right? We couldn't have a reset within the banking industry to where they learn from their lessons, which Obama then inherited and Bush emphasized and then capitalized off of, while at the same time jumping into these wars so he can stay in office. And I hated when Bush was in office. And Clinton sold off the American manufacturing industries inside of the United States of America that was pushed even further into a recession in 2008. That's why the banks became too big to fail, because the only way in which we were making money was based off of the interest that you guys was paying off of the services that was being offered. We became a financing capital. Even the financing arms of the auto manufacturers, that's why they pushed so far into subprime loans, because that's the way that they were boosting profits. We weren't selling anything to anybody based off of what we were making. All right, let me break it down for y'all. Y'all may not understand this, but I'm going to break it down for you just so you can truly understand from a C student's perspective, okay? You ready? All right, check this out. So the banking industry and all of these other manufacturers were incentivized in the 90s to set up their own financing arms. That's why when you buy a car from General Motors, you then finance it from GMAC at the time, right? Or GM Financial. Or if you buy a Lexus, it's Lexus Financial. If you buy Toyota, it's Toyota Financial. Just remix, right? Ally used to be what I believe was GM Financial or GMAC, right? Ford Credit. All of these places, right? And the reason that they did that is because they needed to boost profits. So when you make a vehicle, all right, this is the greatest morning show on earth, and I need you to really pay attention. Listen so you'll understand where the money comes from. Hear me out. Pay attention. Turn up your TV. For all of my hairdressers, for all of my people that's driving trucks, from everybody that's working from home, if you in the office right now, turn it up in your AirPods so I can give you a financial lesson. You can understand where it comes back to the money. Okay? We used to just sell cars, right? General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, all of those places, they used to just sell vehicles. And what happened was you would save up for a car and you would just pay cash for it. And that was back when wages was in the single digits, the dollars, $2, $3, $4. If you was really getting money, you wind up going all the way up to $9, $10, $11 an hour, and the auto manufacturers was booming. They would save, you would buy the car cash, and that would be the end of it. We didn't have all of this debt. At some point, when we started to get rid of manufacturing in the United States of America, we needed to boost profits. So we separated it. And manufacturers of all types, but I'm just going to use the auto industry to illustrate this. Auto industry decided that, you know what? In order to sell more vehicles, then we can finance it. It's the same thing that happened with the housing industry. You used to save for a house, you buy the house, or you build the house, and that was the end of it. Pay your property taxes, and that goes into the infrastructure and the schools and all of that. But instead, we decided that, hey, we can get more houses sold, we can get more cars sold if we allow for you idiots to finance it, because we can't wait to put something on a payment plan. So we established the rules around financing, and then they created separate arms of these auto manufacturers. That's when now it's normal, because a lot of y'all was just born into it, so you don't know the history of it, but now it's normal. So what they did was they created separate arms. They had the financing arm that would then say, okay, listen, we'll give it to you for 60 months, 48 months, 60 months, and now it goes up to 72 months and 84 months, and then you'll pay us the interest. So that's how they make their money off of the interest. But they had to create a banking arm, essentially, to then lend the manufacturer the money so that you, the manufacturer, makes the money, right? So then they have the transaction price. What they also found was that they can raise the prices of the vehicles because you'd be more willing to pay for it if you can actually justify it in the financing arms, right? If you can go buy not how much you buying the vehicle for, but how much your car payment is, you'd be willing to buy it. It's the same thing with the housing industry. They're able to raise the prices of the houses as long as they lower the interest rates, because they know that you are more concerned with the payment instead of how much you're paying in interest, which you wind up paying for that car way more than you would have had you pay cash for it. And people hate Dave Ramsey for saying, hey, pay cash, get rid of the debt, because they've been socialized to believe that financing is the way to go, because we've basically marketed it to you, and now you market it to each other to where we don't even have to create commercials for you. So what happened was they created a separate arm. They created the financing arm, and they got the manufacturing arm. They're not concerned about the manufacturing arm, because the minute that it leaves the lot and it goes over to the dealership is now paying interest on that car, which they're now incentivized to get it over to you. So they want to get incentives from the financing arm. That's why when you go to the dealership, right? I'm giving y'all a lesson. Listen. When you go to the dealership, they don't want you to buy the car cash. They want to move the vehicle, but especially for vehicles that are highly sought after, they don't want to buy the car cash, because they get incentives from the financing arms to then finance it, because that's how they make their money. So at some point, it became imbalanced. It went away from us making vehicles, and they were more incentivized to finance vehicles, right? Because they were making more money, profitability, off of lending you money than they were off of manufacturing the vehicles themselves. We no longer became a manufacturing hub, we became a financing hub. That's why banks were too big to fail in 2008. But then they got greedy because they wanted to sell more vehicles, and they wanted to finance more vehicles, and they wanted to increase profits. So what did they do? They said, we can create a subprime borrower. Now, instead of your credit score justifying you being able to afford the vehicle, we will charge you more. It costs more to be poor. We will charge you more in interest if you are a riskier lender, and we're going to get our money up front. And it became so financially advantageous, it became so much more profitable for the financing arms that they took on more subprime borrowers, and then it extended into the housing industry, it extended into cars, it extended into credit cards, it extended into everything. Eventually, they got so greedy that they started incentivizing the bureaus and the credit agencies that was supposed to be policing them. They start paying them off because they were making so much money, which then created the economic crisis that we face in 2008. America sold off its manufacturing, and we had no other industry to depend on, which we then had to bail out the banks. And guess what? Some of those financing arms, they folded. You know what wound up happening? We created new ones. And we said, well, we just going to abide by the rules this time. We're going to make sure that we don't break the rules that then put us in this position, and we're going to be more stringent on who we lend to, and that's why nobody could get a loan in 2009, 2010, 2011. Anybody that was cash flush, you benefited. You had a buying opportunity. For the people that say, oh man, the market is correcting itself, stocks is down, stocks is overinflated. A lot of these companies, the valuation of them are overinflated. So now it's a buying opportunity for you, because anybody that got cash, anybody that's generating revenue, anybody that's not hamstrung by a bunch of debt that they got to keep paying for, you now can pay into it and buy into it and be able to profit more, because your stocks and the valuation of the things that you're buying is going to explode over a period of time because you got a long-term view. What Trump is trying to do is basically not make us a one-trick pony and bring manufacturing back inside of the United States of America. But he can't explain this to you because your attention span is so low that you don't really understand that you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're creating a Ponzi scheme, and you're making your children have to suffer for the bad decisions and the voting decisions that you make because you're ignorant, you're stupid, you don't understand it, you don't get it. You don't understand the idea behind leveraging tariffs, or then having negotiations, or forcing companies to create jobs back in the United States of America. You can't do so by saying, hey, you just need to create a job, because they go by the profits. But if you say, okay, well, you got to pay more to sell to American citizens, then they're going to say, you know what? Let me create a manufacturing facility there, because it's going to be beneficial for us in the future, and we ain't got to worry about tariffs anymore. The minute that you start learning, the minute that you understand it more, the minute that you then unlock yourself to think differently about how money works, you don't look at the industry and say, man, stocks is down. You say, this is a buying opportunity. You don't look at what the tariffs do and say, man, it costs me more. You say, how many jobs can we create? It's a different mindset that comes along with it. We want smaller government, more private industry, less subsidizing people to get federal jobs and acting like we got a lot of jobs during the Biden administration. We didn't. We just gave out a bunch of money and increased the federal deficit. That is correct. That is why it's called predatory lending. That is because they know that it's going to cost you way more. Think about it for a second. You say, man, it cost me more to buy a house. I will tell you that the interest rates are much lower than they were in the 80s and 90s. But they'll say, man, it cost me more to be able to buy a house, right? Or my payment is higher on my car or my house. I'm not going to dig no more into it. I'm not going to dig no more into it. You so focused on the payment instead of focusing on the product. I don't want to deep dive too much into it.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what's that old saying? There's one born every minute. A sucker born every minute. That's just the way they got you. It was their system since the beginning of time. You know, money itself is theirs. They create money when they need money. Everybody chases money. And in the end, even if you win, you lose. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, I lost, but, you know, at least I can say I tried. I did the best I could, as much as I could. And it just didn't work out, unfortunately. You know? But I always tried really hard. And ultimately, you know, I learned a lot of things. Didn't do me much good in terms of money, but it did do me good in terms of life experience. I did learn that, unfortunately, the way things are, they got you. They got you way, way before this guy's talking about. The whole thing was set up to work that way. The idea that you can sign a piece of paper and get a credit, a credit line, for example. It's just something the elitists wanted for themselves. Okay? It's what they wanted for themselves the entire time. They wanted it for themselves. There. That'll do it. Alright, I just needed to make more cryopods so that I can, you know, I'll unload the bird later. I needed more cryopods because I have a bunch of eggs here that are base level eggs. I need to get them out of these fridges and processed. And I need to get these eggs processed because they've been in there a while. Need to get these done. Need to get, you know, half of these are going to be female, so those are the half that I'm looking for. And then the other ones, I'm just hatching some more oviraptors. I still want to go and do another base on a different map and make another setup just like this over there, just for that breeding, not for anything else. So, you know, I'll need to make some more cryo. I'll need to make some more. What should we call it? Cryo fridges. Okay. Alright, so I do have some stuff in the vault. Okay. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, one guy's talking, they're looking at the history, and the history, you know, people, when they have plenty of money and it's easy to take care of kids, they'll fucking make more kids. Okay? Because they're not afraid of anything happening because they have financial security. The poor did it because it was a way of continuing their bloodline, because back then kids would die young. They'd get a fever and die. They'd get, an infection and die. There was diseases, all kinds of shit. There wasn't stuff like we have nowadays. And so they'd go ahead and they would just, fuck to compensate for the children that they're losing. But what Anton's doing is he's covering the more modern area. In the modern era, you could get a credit line, you can get a car, you can get all this. But the whole thing is just like if I go out and I buy a house, not that I'll ever try to do that again. I would have to have at least $20,000 to $30,000 for me to even consider doing that. But if I were to go out and buy a house, I would want to pay for it cash and put as much down as possible if I did take out a loan to keep the payments low. But like you said, they're making money off you in the interest. They're making money off you, and they're chaining you to a job. They're guaranteeing that they have a slave for 20, 30 years. That's what they're really doing. See, I'm a slave because my father abandoned me, my mother abused me, I couldn't find any favor, I couldn't convince anybody that I was capable of this or that. They didn't really believe in me. They wanted to believe other people, so they hired other people who told them what they wanted to hear. I didn't lie in the resume. I should have just lied on the resume, told them whatever bullshit they wanted to hear, and got the job. But instead, I'm here like a fool, going down to 21 cents, praying to God for relief, because He's the only one that responds. The Lord's the only one that responds. And, sometimes it's really, really, really good. It's a great thing. And sometimes it's so-so. But at least He responds and He tries. And that's the only reason I'm even alive. If I wasn't trying to be faithful, if I wasn't trying to follow the Lord, I honestly probably would be dead by now, or stuck in prison for 11 years. But anyway, I'm thankful for what I've got, and at least I got to take care of somebody. But ultimately, I expected more out of myself. But that's because they got in my head and convinced me that I was capable of this or that, or that I was worthy of this or that. And the thing is, those people don't care. They don't have the capacity to care about anything. They're there to enslave the world socioeconomically. They are not there to be your fucking friends. The friendlier they are to you, the nicer they are to you, the more they want to fuck you. Okay? Now, there's some people out there that are really nice, like some people in the church. They're nice people. They try to be good people. So, your neighbors. Some neighbors are really nice people. Don't get me wrong. But ultimately, everybody uses what they know to get what they want. That's why a lot of people ask questions about you. What can you do? Who do you know? What have you done in the past? Where have you been? What have you learned? They want to drain you for knowledge and experience and resource. They want your time, your energy. Hey, can you do me a favor and pick this up for me? Oh, can you move this over here? It starts really small like that, but eventually it progresses. Ultimately, there's nothing you can do about changing the nature of people, and there's nothing you could do about changing the nature of the world. You can't change the world, but you can overcome the world. You can pray for people, but you pray for the world, and the world has a set destiny, frankly. So that's what I'm saying. You're probably not going to get anything done for the most part in terms of trying to change the world. What Anton's really talking about is how they make money off of you, how they enslave you, and that's it. And the other guy, it's nice to have 2-3 kids, but I wouldn't want a child now with my, even if I got rid of the cats and I used that money for my child wouldn't have anything. They'd be destitute. They'd be eating and just living to eat and eating to live, and then It's so hard. Young people can't find jobs. That's how hard it is right now. It's horrible. That's why I'm like, well, maybe I did dodge a bullet, but I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a good husband. If my mother hadn't put so much fear in my heart and programmed me to fail psychologically, maybe I would have taken a chance with a girl and had a kid or two by now. And they would have been grown. I'm already 54, so my kids would have been in their 20s by now. Easy. 20s, 30s. So they would have been doing their own lives. I should have took a chance. It would have been a burden in the beginning, but I would have been a dad. So I regret my decision to be afraid instead of being in love. I regret my personal decision maximally. Completely. And, yeah. But you can't undo the past. It's too late now. If I go out and I get a woman or a girlfriend, she's going to have 2-3 kids. I'm just going to be a simp taking care of somebody else's kids. And I'm too old to be chasing diapers. I'm too sick to be doing that too. I can barely clean the house. So, personally, I think that, I dodged one bullet, but I tell you, I wouldn't have mind being shot by love. These guys, they're just talking about slavery. That's the way the world is. You're just a slave to your desires. You're a slave to money. You're a slave to your self-concept, your pride. You're a slave to a variety of things when you really start thinking about it. There's all kinds of things. Uh-oh. Something happened. Okay, I thought I maybe changed the... okay, they're still on passive. I don't know what that whistle was. But anyway, I accidentally whistled. You have to check that because you can wind up losing your dinos. All right, so anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to stop the video. Have a good one.